Ahoy, hoy, friends, and Peldor joy. Welcome to the Salon. Let the bell riots begin. It's that season. We're talking about Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 3. We're already a mess, y'all. Just backstage, we've got coffee brewing, we've got booze, we've got edibles, we've got some flights, we've got a whole lot of things going on. We've got so much to talk about tonight. We're so excited you all are here with us. Thank you for joining us in the chat. Let us know how you're doing. Be sure to chat along when we're talking about these episodes. Give them your thumbs up, your thumbs down. Say what you liked about them, what you didn't like. Make fun of Matt and his really ridiculous itinerary flying from Ohio to Detroit to Seattle, then to Palm Springs. But I'm so excited to see you tomorrow in person as soon as I drive the 2 hours to get there and just rubbing in that.
Literally less than my next flight, which is my third flight. That's not
Matt, pay attention to that announcement. Joanne, welcome back. How's the coffee?
Coffee is life. It's good.
Coffee is life.
You know, I once heard someone say that was the finest organic suspension ever devised. So,
a murderer said that. And I support that murderer. We're talking about Vice Admiral Janeway. And I support that murderer. How are the others doing? We're talking about...
Oops. I'm good. I don't know.
I like how you had to articulate who the murderer was because it could have been any of us.
It could have been so many.
It was me. Well, I'm doing a bunch of murders, so people think it was Janeway, not. I don't know.
But I'm
honestly just make me your next suspect, please.
I'm having a purple vodka thing.
You just have to open a hatch on a plane. Really get
no.
That
would make it
get
last
your 15
longer.
minutes, Matt.
I mean, and depending on who you're flying, you may not even need to open up the hatch. It'll just happen on its own.
No, I'm Delta today, so.
I will never fly on a Boeing Max airplane. People make fun of me. Shan't be doing it.
Update our people who will never sponsor us list to add Boeing.
Yes. And I'll be reaching out to Airbus and thanking them tomorrow. Speaking of really bad segues, let's do this thing. Clear all moorings. Let's set an intention. Candle is lit.
It's as am I. So let's begin today, shall we, with a fun little time travel question. Matt may love this one. So we do get a little bit of time travel this season, but I would like to know, what time period or event do you wish either Star Trek or DS9, hopefully DS9, but Star Trek in general, had visited that they never did? So we get 2024 that looks very different than what it actually looks like right now, sort of in some ways. Certainly from a hair accessory perspective, this season in DS9. But that being said, Star Trek does a lot of time travel. But where in history would you like to see any crew visit that never actually happened? I personally would like to have seen more DS9 time travel than we got. We didn't really get much of it. Spoiler alert for Krista. But I always enjoy the sort of fish out of water aspects of Trek time travel, particularly with, Spock in the 1980s on Earth trying to figure his way around. So I would love to see Kira and even Dax trying to figure themselves out in sort of weird time periods. But I think I'm kind of obsessed with, and this is going to sound super cheesy, so just forgive me, but I'm kind of obsessed with Titanic, and I just think like having them drop into some sort of weird actual historic event that, and it doesn't need to be they don't have to save the Titanic or make sure it sinks, but just like something that's happening while other things are happening, other events are happening.
I
think
want
would be
them to
really
make
exciting
sure
sell.
it sinks. If we're
Hey,
gonna
I
do
have a-
this, that's the story. I want Kira or Esri to have to distract that man that was supposed to be looking out for icebergs.
Odo was the iceberg. No, I have.
Sold. I was gonna say Odo's the iceberg. I was gonna say
Yeah.
Odo's the iceberg.
This ocean is so random. Yes, Bo and Yang.
Oh
No, I have a whole. I do love when like actual things are happening and then like behind the scenes stuff is happening that is never really happened, but like these fun fictional stories. But I do have a whole time traveler theory around Titanic that we'll talk about on another salon or off or backstage, involving Jack actually being a time traveler and making sure the ship sank. Trust me, it works. But anyway, that's my Trek time travel wish that never happened. But what are yours? Let's go around the room. And we'll start with Krista and zigzag back.
And make it weirder. Make it weirder than
Please.
sinking the
Please.
Titanic.
I have a tame one, and then I have a weird one. The tame one is probably the TNG crew in Elizabethan England during the war for Elizabeth to keep the crown. But the fun one that I'd rather see is I'd actually rather see them plunked into an Aliens movie set where they actually had to fight this thing that bleeds acid, and the organization that they work for is clearly usury, really don't care about them. But I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the time travels. I'm not a big fan of those in general. So I if anything, I'd like them to be plunked into something where they all get hurt, which is probably a bad motivator. That's me.
It's another point in the sociopath column, but that's okay. I'm not keeping track of that one.
It's fine.
Let's go to live from SeaTac with Commodore Riggs.
So I thought actually of a really good one, but I can't say it in an airport because I think it would be really funny if like Kira
Does it
and
start
Dax
Oh, go ahead.
with a
Is it
9.
Boogie Nights?
Does it
Like-
rhyme with Bly McKevin?
Yeah, it does. But what
Okay.
if it was like Kira and Dax that like had to fly? Is it just the jet lag? Is that a terrible idea?
No, I think it's the
we
bottle of
just-
champagne. I think it's
And
the
they
bottle of
have to
champagne.
make
It could
sure
be
that it
anything.
happens.
No, they have to do it. They're the ones that actually end up taking over and doing it. And then
We're
then
all
them
going to
beam
hell,
out.
by the way.
Yeah.
We're all going to hell. Not all of us. Sorry, Joanne. Most of us are going to hell. Who wants to go next?
Matt, I think your time's up. It's Joanne's turn.
I just think it would be funny if at the very last second they beamed out as you see, the buildings.
And they just have they have to live with it.
And they could.
It's for the timeline.
Of course, I'm not hell exempt, but I would. Well, since like Mr. Brooks was so kind of reluctant, although not this season, but he was not excited about the whole bada bing, being black in the 50s and that sort of thing. So I would really love for him to go like to a time period, or for them to go where, I say this, kind of in quotes, where at the nascent kind of maybe of some Black liberation or empowerment, like maybe late 70s or Harlem Renaissance, so that, to see him in the club, at a soul session, reading some poetry, playing the piano, singing, you know what I mean? Like just a whole, vibe. Go to a couple of, rallies, just sort of thing. So that would be my wish for sure.
A time travel story wherein art or artistry is saved versus an actual component of the timeline that is, we've got to save this person or we've got to make sure that event happens
Right.
would be really cool.
Right.
Will?
I don't know. The time travel stuff was never super interesting to me, like going back in time. Like there's been a few times where that's happened where I was like, oh, okay. I've always found it more interesting when they jump forward. So like the few times that we get to, sorry, spoilers, Krista, with the couple times we kind of see it. But like that's one of the things I loved about the All Good thing about the TNG finale, All Good Things, is they jumped forward. So we got to see a progression. Like it would be cool to have like, I always think there should every series of Star Trek should have a season where they're in the future for no reason other than my personal own desires. So it's like just jump that shit forward. I want to see some different shit, and then you can go back. Like that's fine, but no time period I want them to go back to. I mean, if I was in Star Trek and I had a time travel device, I'd go back in time and kill Reagan. But that's my own personal vendetta. It's that awful fucking man. But yeah, I'm gonna go back and poison the jelly beans. But no, nothing. No time I want to go. Huh? Oh, there's a guy behind Matt.
It's like the freaky person behind.
There's a possible murderer behind Matt. But anyway,
it's Seattle.
Captain.
I'm trying to stay on theme and think about which horrible historical events I want to make Star Trek characters make sure happen. But listen, killing Reagan is an excellent idea because literally every problem this country faces currently can be traced back to that man. Most of them.
They find out Reagan is a changeling and have to go back and kill him.
Yes.
In fairness, it's not a stretch. So
yeah,
really,
the alternate history of For All Mankind is particularly great in that regard. He was still president, but not 2 terms. Anyway, yeah, killing the other presidents who were assassinated. Let's make Kira have to do that for some reason. Or Bashir.
Bashir has to go back and shoot Lincoln. Bashir has to go back and he jumped on Wilkes Booth. Has to go back and what a fucking bad season of Star Trek. There's like we ran out of ideas, so every episode is them going back and having to kill a famous person. Like Dax goes in and like gives Marilyn a couple more sleeping pills. It's fucking terrible.
Jesus,
what an awful season.
We are going to hell.
Because we already think all these time travel episodes are awful, what if the whole plot line was just Bashir going back in time to set the leg when John Wilkes Booth?
No, wait.
That's his sole purpose. He just has to make sure that
somebody runs on stage and says, Janet, don't let him anywhere near this. Don't.
We're missing a really
change the Super Bowl.
Bashir could go down as Lincoln's special friend in history.
It's going to trash your career because he's a douchebag.
Yeah, we're missing an integral one. Obviously, it has the penultimate episode of the end has to be O'Brien has to go back and be one of the Roman soldiers that kills Jesus. Like that obviously has to be.
Yes.
Like, oh my God.
I do believe it's time to transition, Captain.
Because things get in the way of him completing the job, and he's just there to complete the job. I'm just job.
They make O'Brien Judas. He has to go back and turn Jesus in. Oh my God.
Yes. And all of this is a series long Esri Dax therapist over trauma story. Because they're all just like, we had to do terrible things for the timeline, and she's just desperately trying to help them. That poor woman, that symbiote's going insane. Well, this was delightful. We're all going to be canceled, and I love it.
I'm also going to say my goodbyes now because it's about to happen in the next couple minutes. So I love you all. I will see you soon.
Goodbye.
Trev, if you want to pick me up, if not, okay.
I'll find you at the Palm Springs Airport, Twink and Found.
I'm so glad we had this.
Bye, Matt. Thanks for beaming in. All right, y'all. It's that time. Time to talk about Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 3. It's a Salon Thumb War. with a caveat. We might be mixing things up this evening. Season 3 is banger after banger after banger after great episode. Watch it again. Time travel, profits, new enemies, no sleep, another club. Because of that, a few episodes this evening, not for any particular reason about their content, other than maybe they're not like super growth oriented for any of our characters or move the overall arc. We might vote on them and then just not talk about them too much or at all. We'll see depending on timing, but plenty of our episodes we're going to really get into because there are amazing episodes this season. There are episodes that are key for multiple characters in the show, key for the arc of the show. And so we want to make sure that we have enough time to discuss them in full. But we also have a smaller crew today. So it's entirely possible that we will, through no particular reason other than the number of people on the screen, have more time to talk about various episodes. So we'll see. How does that sound to the crew? Thumbs up for that idea.
Aye, sir.
Excellent. So, new folks in the audience, be sure to be chatting along. Let us know. Do you give the episode a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or a thumbs sideways? We are going to have our co-host Trevor give the description of the episode that he did not write. I want to make that clear again. These are poorly written summaries, but not from Trevor. But they're fun. So we're going to do that. And also the last thing is the two-parter episodes we're going to discuss as one. And for the tally, the whatever we thumb them, that's a weird way of putting that, will be counted for both episodes. So Trevor, take us away with The Search parts 1 and 2.
Season 3, episodes 1 and 2. Deep Space Nine is granted a new tactical asset, the powerful warship Defiant, to avert invasion. Cisco searches Gamma Quadrant for the founders. I don't know why it doesn't say the Gamma Quadrant. The unseen leaders of the Dominion. Tensions escalate when it appears the Federation has handed over DS9 and the entire Bajoran sector to the Dominion. Dun dun dun. That's actually not a bad summary for those two. I hate that we preface this by saying these are terrible. Trust me, they'll get worse. That's actually a pretty decent summary. This picks up on something that happened in season 2, which is DS9 not necessarily having cliffhanger endings and then picking them up in the beginning, but rather just sort of giving you a little bit of foreshadowing of what's to come and then picking that story up months later, so that the season break doesn't seem so horrible, but actually kind of plays out in real time almost. We pick up with the senior staff, absent Cisco, who's back on Earth talking about the Dominion, discussing the danger to Bajor. Defiant shows up. Off they go on a mission. Odo wants to go along, feels drawn to a certain aspect or a certain part of the Gamma Quadrant, and hijinks ensue. Thoughts, feelings, thumbs?
Let's go to Joanne and then Krista.
So I'm gonna be the odd person out, and this episode doesn't do it for me. I don't dislike it, but I found the whole changeling bits and bots weird. They kind of creep me out. Also, kind of bear in mind, like my first sort of viewing of this, I'm also in the final year of like grad school, again, hating my life. So I suspect it's coloring a lot of, my like, all the juicy episodes. I'm like, oh, too much. So yeah, I was probably not the best place to start on this one. Sorry. Hated it. No.
Oh, I didn't hate it. There were a couple of things that I really liked. I liked Cisco's just kind of cowboy excitement at this kind of broke down ship that he's got, and they don't know if it's going to work, and they don't know if it's going to do what it needs to do. And he's like, yeah, let's fuck around and find out. And everybody climbs on board, and they're like, yeah. That sense of excitement is what I imagine most people join Starfleet for, that idea of exploration and that idea of pushing the limit. And I was thinking Carl Yeager with the sound barrier, and, you know, had he not done that and risked it. So I liked that they reintroduced that kind of innocent curiosity that has some dangers, but still they were kind of cowboyish, embracing it. I thought it was funny that Bashir in the first season starts out saying, you know, I'm really excited about this frontier medicine thing. And then the first thing he does is start bitching about the sick bay on the ship because he's a fucking tourist, and nobody likes a tourist, you big baby. I am confused by the appearance of the changelings, because as I understand it, Odo, like Vatic, adopted the face and the look of the people that experimented on them. And so I was curious why the changelings coming out of the Great Link would adopt something so similar to him, if it's not just to sort of show the same face. Which then brings me to part 2, where I think Odo realizes that even if you share a face or you share like an origin history, you're not necessarily true to what they're not necessarily true to what they present. And it becomes an exercise in nature versus nurture, in which Odo realizes that he's unlike his own kind, and he is his own nurturer. And despite his yearning for wholeness and belonging, he feels apart and still a part. And it shows the crew in total as sort of carrying on from the second season, that they, on appearances versus reality, they really can only trust themselves to one another. They can't reach out into these other areas, into these other groups, and find necessarily people that they can depend on. It's the core group, and only the core group, that they can depend on. And that's sort of presented in the first 2 episodes of this season. And it really doesn't matter the differing ideologies and the species and where they come from. They've proven and they've earned the right to depend on one another. And I really liked they're starting the connection with Odo and Kira. It's based on a friendship. It's based on an intellectual understanding in which there's like a reciprocal exchange of joy. It's not the physical thing with the Vedic. It's this whole other thing. So I know that's going to be important because they're spending a lot of time building that. And to me, if they get to be a couple, they're going to last a lot longer. I don't know the ending, so don't tell me. And I liked when they said to become a thing is to know a thing, and to assume its form is to begin to understand its existence. And I thought in any timescape, that is something that everybody should try to understand. Walk in another man's shoes. That's basically the shortened version. So I liked it. I didn't have anything really nasty to say about it. I'll save that for some of the others.
I can help with one thing, which is Odo's face and their face. So Odo mimics the hairstyle of the man that
but not the
raised
face.
him, but not the face. He says he mentions struggling creating a Bajoran nose. So I think we're to believe that he struggled with faces in general. And then the changelings are then mimicking him when they come out to present themselves to him with sort of an identical type of face.
So that basically means that they're natural. So to me, my first thought was, how do they appear to the Jem'Hadar then? What is the form that they like? Do we ever find out?
My headcanon was always that, like, they said a couple of things about, like, he said that faces were hard for him,
Right.
but not that. I just assumed like his face was like, I don't know, sort of predisposed, and so maybe that is what they look like. But changelings who are better at shape shifting can change their faces to look different. But I could
because he never
certainly be wrong.
becomes another humanoid. Like he could he could mimic other
Well,
people's faces, but he can't.
He sort of takes the form of Curzon, like a little, like that. There's much more definition in his face, but that might be because he went in the meat flap. I don't.
Yeah, there's a little discussion later in the series on one particular episode that I'm vaguely remembering where he basically he hasn't. I think two things are happening. One, it's kind of framing that he's not a very good changeling because he isn't around his people, so he doesn't practice that a lot. So I feel like he doesn't. I think it's implying that he's not as skilled because he's not with his people. And I also think the other thing is that if they made the changelings look different from Odo, we as an audience would not associate them to be with Odo. So I think it's also just a creative license that they've done to make all of the changeling makeup look fairly similar. They do kind of lightly discuss it, but I think if they made the changelings come out and be like perfectly a different type of makeup, or they had like a different type of like visual styling, that we wouldn't associate them with Odo, if that makes sense. Yeah. So like they do kind of explain it, but I also think it's part of the. Yeah. So yeah,
I thought too hard about it and moved.
Yeah. No, it's kind of a, because it doesn't. It's sometimes
it's just to piss you off, Krista.
Yeah. It is. They that was the time travel that happened. They're like,
they were like, in the future, someone's gonna watch this.
And we're gonna piss them off. I also think sometimes the changeling stuff gets a little like they're as good as they change at the speed of the plot, as it were. So like some are better at things than others, but as we get deeper into the Dominion War, we'll see some of it kind of like not make sense. But I think it's just to keep their makeup pretty similar. But Odo does describe it that he's not very good at being looking like a person. So I don't think Odo ever changes into another person. I think he's always turning into objects or animals or creatures or something. So I think he makes it implies that he's not good at that. But it's kind of framed that he's not with the Great Link, so that skill is not shared with everybody.
Can I just?
It's not shared with him.
And just think, I would always, the one thing about the changelings, I would just giggles like, it's got to be hot to be like their partner, right? Because they could just.
That's a polyamorous cuddle pull if I ever saw one.
They could just shake to whatever you like, right?
Joanne, yes.
Thank you.
Well, when you have sex with them, they just turn into like a cloud of like. We see that later.
Which is really what I was thinking on the later end of the season, where like the changeling could be anything, and it's like it could be the fucking Pop-Tart you're holding in your hand. You don't. It's like you're just looking at people. It could be the light fixture, like
it could be the fleshlight.
Yeah, that plays into an episode later. We see that later. Could be anything, Mom. It could be whatever it It could be whatever's hiding. Yeah. It could be whatever is hiding in the back of that one drawer on your nightstand in the back. You know that thing that's back there, the Hitachi. Could
the founder said. The founder said, "Can I get it? Oh
yeah." Oh God.
And no one hollered back.
Canceled again.
I don't.
Hey guys, can I talk to you over here really quick? I'm apologizing for that joke. That just it really didn't land, and so we'll just skip past it.
Which joke before that one?
Back over here. Probably both of them. Probably all of them. Okay, let's get back to the salon. Thumbs for the search parts 1 and 2.
Is that a side or an up, Joanne? Side.
2 sides and 3 up.
You're muted, Trev, if you're talking.
I was talking to myself. Thank you. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, it was 3 ups and 2 sides, so it's an up. Moving on to season 3, episode 3, The House of Quark. Okay. I'm not judging it yet. Quark's bragging backfires, and he ends up on the Klingon homeworld, married to the widow of a warrior he supposedly killed.
This is one of the episodes that we're going to vote on. We have some quick commentary from 2 of our speakers, and then we're going to move on. So let's see those thumbs for House of Quark. Two sides and 3 ups again. Oh, what's that huffing about over there?
It strains me to click the drop down and select up. So
It's good. It's about the role. You kind of get some Klingon world building. You kind of see the juxtaposition of kind of, but not really, about the role of women with kind of Keiko and Grilka and that sort of thing. I'm fascinated. I'm obsessed with the Klingons. So I like just the whole concept of them. And I don't know why they won't do like a Game of Thrones with the Klingons, but because they could support it, all the great houses. But anyway, so I really loved it. So I love it. Also, Quark has one move, right? Like putting the hand on the thigh, putting the hand on the, on the leg. That's his move.
His thigh move.
Yeah.
And Krista, I believe you had a 60-second rant on this episode.
I don't have a rant. I generally don't like when they write for women, like they know how women feel, but they did 2 things really well. I liked the reversal of facilitation. So I liked using men to facilitate the women's story instead of doing it the other way. I like that they used Bashir as the third-party contributor to the idea that while O'Brien is an ideally loving and devoted spouse, he's still missing the mark because he fails to identify the core problem, and he's just trying to solve it instead of making the adjustment that's necessary. And I like that they dropped Bashir in there as the guy who says, hey, this is what I'm seeing because it's correct. And the second thing is I really liked that they used Quark as the facilitator in Grilka's learning to need to communicate and accept help, and that help not signifying weakness, but actually proving to be strength in being able to get what she needs done and to get the respect that she wants. She needed help to do that. So those are the 2. The way I watched this 3rd season was I didn't want to identify the things I didn't like. I wanted to go through and identify the things that I did like. So those were the 2 things.
I love it. All right, let's move on.
alrighty then. Season 3, episode 4, Equilibrium. On the Trill homeworld, Cisco, Bashir, and Jadzia seek an explanation for her recent bizarre hallucinations. I'm really upset that these descriptions are actually pretty good. I mean, that's what it's about. It doesn't spoil anything. Obviously, there is a significant moment for Jadzia that I kind of love in terms of finding out about other hosts. But yeah, that's a pretty spot on description. What do you guys think?
Let's see those thumbs. I want to say a quick word about this episode before we move on. I love it because we do get to see more of the Trill homeworld and a little bit more about how their society works. We get a little bit of a conspiracy. We learn that actually many more people than was previously thought to be suitable for hosting a symbiote can. And they were going to let Jadzia die to keep that secret because they gave the symbiote to a secret host that we didn't know about in a Duran. So there was a really fun whodunit mystery. There was the medical stuff, Julian caring for his friend in finally a not creepy way. and we got to see more of Chill Society. So that's why it was a thumbs up for me. But let's zip right along to talk about Second Skin.
Easy for you to say. Season 3, Episode 5, Second Skin. The possibility Kira is really a Cardassian field operative creates turmoil on the space station and on Cardassia. Again, they're kind of 5 for 5 with these descriptions. They do leave out the development of a really powerful relationship for Kira, and some significant character growth for her in embodying her enemy. And I should put enemy in air quotes. Yeah, fantastic Kira episode. And I won't spoil my thumb, but I think I already did. So what do you guys think?
We also got some amazing Garrick moments.
All
Is he-
Garrick moments are amazing.
This is accurate. All Garrick moments are amazing. I loved this episode. It's a Kira episode, so it's obviously a thumb up for me. Nana Visitor is one of, if not the best actor in the franchise. She is so good. The way that she runs through anger and despair, the way that she connects with Lega Gamor towards the end. It's a beautiful story all throughout. The stuff with Garrick is obviously super fun. I love the way that he weaves his lies, like, oh, I heard this somewhere back when I was a gardener on Romulus or whatever. Like, and God, just chef's kiss all around. The writing, everything about it. I'm gonna give this one of I believe this was a Will quote from the past. Whoever wrote this episode deserves to get their ass ate.
Yeah, and Nana needs to get hers eaten too. This is like my favorite episode of the season because I think it's so. I like episodes that are like, oh, this could go really bad. Like this is a pretty typical plot. Like we've seen this a few times. Like we've seen it with Troy, and we've seen it with other characters who are like suddenly they're in a place and they're pretending to be someone else. Like blah blah blah, whatever. We've seen this before, but I think in a plot that could be viewed as contrived, giving it to an actor who is like clearly like eating so much she ate everyone else's lunch. Like she ate every meal, she ate everyone else's meals. She went next door, ate all the food in their house. She was eating constantly. This woman just kept eating. And like it goes to her skill that sometimes it takes a great actor to make kind of a mediocre script great. And I don't think the script is mediocre, but I think it's a plot contrivance we've had a few times in Star Trek. And giving it to her, I think like she just like it was like she acted circles on everyone. I felt bad for everyone in that episode, like watching it again more critically. But like just as like a character, like just as the character here and everything, I think it's in that character growth continues through the rest of the show. Like you can see it continue through. Like it's not just, oh, this is a moment for them to have it this episode and then we hit the reset button the next one. You can really see how it's carried through Nana's performance from this episode to the last. Like it's really amazing. But like watching this, it was just like, God, she's so fucking good. Like if I ever met her, I would just be like, I just want to eat a little bit of your brain so I get some of that acting ability. Cause damn, like it was wild. She just shredded. I don't know. Can't say enough good things about this episode.
No spoilers.
Clearly I hated it.
No spoilers for Krista, but this episode fundamentally changes the character.
Yeah. But in a way that's earned too. Like it didn't feel like 100%. It came out of nowhere. Like they were correcting like a misstep they did in development. It felt like it was a natural progression of this character.
It echoes the changeling comment, which is get into the skin and live in that skin. You get to know something and you know, I mean, she did a phenomenal job. She really did. I mean, it's a thumbs up for me. I figured you guys were gonna cover this big time.
Yeah.
As your mama. So
yeah, this episode's almost it's almost a part two to duet. It was another experience for her to have that again is another sort of shared similarity with Odo. There's a shared thing happening there
that continues to be built brick by very small brick, but you can see it happening, and I'm there for it because I'm not a huge fan of the Vedic. So anyway, thumbs up.
Yeah, I think it's thumbs up all around, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I would assume.
It is for me.
Let us move to season 3, episode 6, The Abandoned. A genetically engineered infant found in the wreckage of a ship matures quickly into a violent Jem'Hadar teen who obeys only Odo.
And this is another one that we're just going to go ahead and vote. And I believe Krista had a quick word on it before we move on to the next one.
Real quick, again, it builds on Odo trying to kind of distinguish himself, his individuality separate from the collective, separate from the Sea of Life or whatever, the Great Link. And I liked it because Odo transforms his quarters into a bouncy house playground, which is very similar to what every lottery winner does immediately. They buy everything they've ever wanted. And the fact that he has taken quarters, that in and of itself is growth. He's extended beyond this bucket in the office. Now he's in quarters. Now he's individualizing his quarters. He's experimenting. Again, you can't say that that's not growth. And the fact that he extends himself towards the Jem'Hadar boy, I think he does it because he understands what it means to be a research subject. He understands what it means to be experimented on and to be not understood. And he did it, I think, so he could say that he did it. So he could have his own experience with the Jem'Hadar, and he could discover whether there was something more than just the military arm of the founders. Is it nature versus nurture? That nature versus nurture plays through this entire season. And maybe I was just looking for it, but anyway.
Oh, very true.
That's all I wanted to say.
All right, let's see those thumbs.
I liked it.
I keep ending up on the losing side of these arguments.
Yeah.
It's okay. I'll have my way, damn it.
Okay.
Hey, everybody calm down. I don't want any riots starting.
Haha.
Segue.
Is it? Season 3, episode 7, Civil Defense. O'Brien and Jake accidentally activate an automated multi-level security program, and each phase brings the station closer to destruction. Again, half of the fun of these is the horrible descriptions, and that's a really good one. This episode is a shit ton of fun, and it's one that if it's on, I'm watching. It doesn't move anything for anyone, and it doesn't change anything for anyone. It's just a silly romp on the station, and I kind of dig it.
But
Those
nobody's
are my
saying
thoughts.
Farah Jaka, so that I was happy about. It was pretty.
No
much
one sang Farah Jaka, and comm badges didn't stop working for no apparent reason. Looking at you, disaster. All right, folks, what do we think?
I was like,
Oh my god, I finally won one.
Ah.
I changed my mind last minute. If you notice, I was okay. So if I could give a half, I would.
I
This one is
appreciate it.
like
that's a half is like that.
Yeah, or like not quite, but a here, not here, but here. Yeah.
Good call out, Joel. This episode also brought us attention Bajoran workers.
Yes. Attention, Bajoran workers. Also, if you're not following Real Gold Ducat on Twitter, do yourself a favor, unless it's a little too close to home because it's very much a parody of Donald Trump.
It's awesome.
It is so good.
They're basically the same person.
Yes.
I love
corrupt Jean-Luc Picard. Blah blah blah. It's great.
This is the episode where Gold Ducat and Garrett get into an argument, and one suggests that Ducat wants to sleep with Kira, and
because he very much does.
Okay, because that did make me laugh out. I love whenever that guy gets uncomfortable.
I love Garrett calling it out too. He's like he's not doing it to be a friend to Kira, but he's doing it to fuck with Gul Dukat. But I'm gonna call that being a good ally, even if it's not for that reason.
He's got like this weird clockwork orange, I'm too coked out of my brain eyeballs. Like they're just so wide.
And with that, we're moving on. What's the next episode, Trevor?
From a clockwork space station to season 3, episode 8, Meridian. The crew of the Defiant discovers a planet in the Gamma Quadrant that shifts between dimensions and is about to disappear for 60 years. Star Trek Brigadoon. What did we think?
Let's vote, and then Will is going to have something to say about this episode.
Chris just said no. I'm kind of a sideways because I like the sad ending. Go ahead, Will. Let her out.
All right, bitches. Grab a hat and get ready to hold on to it.
Let's do it.
This is like rewatching this episode. I remember watching it and liking it as a kid because of like the sciencey aspect of this, and then watching it again, I'm like, Jadzia likes. Thank you, Benji. This boring ass man, this boring creepy dude. This dude wants to. Yes, Walter knows I'm upset. He's standing up to protect me. It was so annoying. Like, it was so watching it, just like, you fell in love with this turd in 2 weeks and are going to leave your entire life behind to go spend 60 years as a cloud of consciousness. It was just like, I understand what they were trying to do for the character of Jadzia, give her a moment, maybe find a romance for her, do something, which has worked with Kira. But for this kind of series of romances she's had, they've been over several episodes, or like, there's more development to it. This was like, some random fucking dude is like stealing Jadzia from everyone, and everyone's just okay with it. No one's like, hey, girlfriend, do you want, if Garrick was on the Defiant when that happened, he'd be like, let's sit down. Let me tell you something. Girl, you're not going with this fucking man.
Counterpoint, I will say, no spoilers, although I think this is a big one that even Krista would know. Like, she does end up with another boring ass man for a bit, so it's a bit of a foreshadowing thing.
This is different though. Yeah, they have a connection. Her love for the Klingon culture and stuff makes sense. Yes. But like, fine. This was just. Watching it, I was like, boo, tomato. I hated it. It was so frustrating. Like, Jadzia is a character we know just deserves more, but like.
But the suggestion that she would literally give everything up for this guy is exactly the kind of thing that would be written by men who write a woman who's so extraordinary.
In the early to mid 90s, wrote this woman, and then
You know what it should have been? So it should have been.
And none of her past life, all the other decks, all of her past lives, they were all cool with it. All the past hosts were like, "Yeah, girl, let's do it." Fuck?
I wish it was actually that. It should have been that, like, oh, there's a romance here. That's interesting to explore. But also, more importantly, we get to go experience being pure energy. This is a new experience for the symbiont. Like, if they had leaned more into that scientific and exploration opportunity, that could have been much more interesting.
Yeah. I mean, and then the ending was just like, all right, if they had a more interesting ending that the reason she couldn't go with them was because she had the symbiont, like, it was like, okay, like the symbiont was incompatible with what was ever going on this planet, whatever. But like, watching it just made me angrier as the episode went on. And then when we got to the end, I was like, well, fuck this, like, all for nothing. And then she's like, I just need some time. Like, boo, tomato, like, bad. Like, it was so stupid. Just made me mad. And this whole season is just like banger, next one, good episode, solid, banger. And then we get this fucking turd. Just like annoying.
It is frustrating when they give Jadzia an episode and it's romance.
Like, it's a romance one, which she doesn't deserve. Like, considering we get 2 pretty good Dax episodes, even though they kind of tread some of the same water a little bit. They're both good.
How dare you?
I'll say it again.
Listen,
they're too similar.
I said it last week that they undermine her character by continually referring back to these other symbionts, these other memories, the Curzon Dax of it all. They give her one episode where she gets to be Jadzia, and she falls for fucking Mr. Rogers. You know,
Because he's not even hot. I mean, come on.
No, and the way he talks is so annoying. The guy was a bad actor too.
All she was waiting for was Captain Boring to walk up and sweep her off her feet and give her a pair of slippers, and they go off into the energy world. No, it was bad. Thumbs down. Let's move on. It just makes me
hate it.
So I
hate it.
Hated it.
I eat this thing and spit it back out. Thumbs down.
Boot.
Oh wait, what were the thumbs on this one?
Doesn't matter. Boot.
I have to amend my. Well, I thought it was a sideways, but I guess it's a down.
No.
Yes.
It's a down.
I'm using my ultimate thumbs down. This one goes in the trash. I'm going back in time. I'm stopping them from making it. We should all get a golden buzzer where we could go, this episode has to get a thumbs up. We can also get one that's a golden turd saying this is the one that has to get a thumbs down.
The golden
turd. Yeah.
Season 3, episode 9. Defiant.
Sorry.
Commander Will Riker's duplicate, steals the Defiant and prepares to lead the Maquis rebels on an attack against a secret Cardassian base. Again, decent description, although I would have just said Commander Riker's duplicate, Thomas Riker. Like, the guy has a name. Like, he's not just running around as Will Riker. Though he does impersonate him, and we know that he's evil because he has a goatee. Because that's clearly how we define... Yep. Breakaway sideburns. Also, could they not have done a cool Star Trek thing where he just, like, zapped him off or something? Like, did we have to have... They were, like, 18th century stage makeup, like peeling off of his face.
He hit Party City up on the way in. There's a Party City on DS9. He was able to.
Of all Star Trek locales, I would expect there to be one on the station. And also, again, kind of on the theme here of let's take our amazing female characters and have them fall for a schmuck. Kira getting all hotsy-totsy over not really Will Riker. Is annoying.
I mean, but Riker is.
that's relatable.
Yeah, that's relatable content.
That's what
that man oozes heavy, dense hog. Like I just know.
Thomas Riker is the ultimate. Like we've had all these conversations about Picard's love interests, and we've called them all. What did we call them? Wish.com versions of Beverly. This Thomas is Wish.com. Will, like, we know this.
I don't care.
Stan's yelling at me and I can't hear him. Stan's yelling.
I don't need the personality. You're muted, honey.
Stan, you're on mute.
Ma'am, I can't.
I was saying no. Who's we? You got a mouse in your pocket? The royal we? No one here has ever referred to another human woman as Beverly's Wish.com.
Ma'am.
Shitty people.
You are not always we. Just because I said we doesn't mean I mean every single person.
I have very bitter feelings towards those who have done that. Nella Darren deserves better.
Nella Darren deserved Marasta Yale. We've been through this. Okay. Thoughts about stealing the Defiant and trying to blow up the Maquis? Or the Cardassians?
The only thing this episode made me want was these brief peeks into the spy games, the organizations specific to species, really makes me want spies in space. Like, can you just give me spy? I want that. I want to see all of that stuff. But outside of that, it was just a let's get frakes.
Yeah,
it did something that DS9 does really, really well, which is plant a seed of something that will pay off later. It gives us the whole. What do you mean there are ships in that sector? The Obsidian Order doesn't have ships,
right?
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna find out.
Yeah. It's a good. It's kind of fun to see Kira school people on how to be a good terrorist, because you kind of forget that she's like. Because we love her so much and her role on Deep Space Nine, that it's like giving Osama bin Laden like a seat on the presidential cabinet. Like it's I don't know. It's just I always love. We see it again a few times where Kira gets to like show people how to be a good freedom fighter. This one was fun. I don't know. It's a thumbs up. It was fun. it's fun to plant the seeds of some future episodes, especially this season. But and it was fun to see Riker or Will Jonathan Frakes play like evil, which I could tell he kind of enjoyed, like getting to play someone who's not Will Riker but isn't. It was fun.
Show me your thumbs. Alrighty. So far, I've only won like 2 of these. I know, it's not a competition. Okay, season 3, episode 10. Oh, Amazon would like me to know that something has arrived. Season 3, episode 10, Fascination. An unexpected burst of passion sweeps through the station during a Bajoran festival, not just any Bajoran festival, resulting in odd combinations of couples. I have to say, as the person clearly writing this, they clearly don't watch Star Trek. That's the best not Star Trek viewer description of these combinations that are like odd combinations of couples.
There's nothing odd about any of those combinations. They could work in various what if scenarios.
But none of the ones that I wanted to happen happened. So
yeah.
In one of those odd combinations actually was in real life fortuitous, and
the two that actually the two that actually start banging it out on screen.
Produced a bebe.
Yeah.
It could have been so much. It could have been so much more. And I feel like they trotted Luoxana out so that they could have sexual undertones. But
in that hideous costume.
In the hideous costume and the bad wigs. And
so mad.
She never looked worse, really. And
it's a crime against all Beta Z.
It could have been more along the therapeutic vein, which is what the whole Gratitude Festival is about, is kind of unloading burning these scrolls and moving into the next phase of your life without carrying all this baggage with you. And they could have gone with that, but instead they did sort of like we'll do the virus from TOS and from the Naked Now, but we'll make it this instead, and it'll be Xanthi, and it'll have a Betazoid and whatever. One, I don't understand the flat lip kissing. Like, there's no chemistry between Vedic and Kira. There's no chemistry there. It's none. The kissing is completely flat-lipped. It's like there's something like they're both smiling and just sort of pushing their lips together, but they're not really. There's no chemistry, and that always took me out. So I was happy with what ended up happening. But the thing that I wanted to mention was when I was watching it, it reminded me of there's a place in Colorado. 12,000 elevation I lived, and every year we would do a burning of the Grump, and there's only 800 people that live there, and the day before we would shut access to the city proper, so if you didn't live there you couldn't be there, and basically they would make a 3 to 4 story bonfire in the middle of the grocery store parking lot, and you would write out your stuff and you would burn it, and it was called the burning of the Grump. Along with that was about 24 to 36 hours of constant hallucinogenic mushrooms. So the idea was that the entire city is hallucinating and their minds are all open, and people are throwing things into these fires to get rid of it and to go on. And they didn't go that route on the show. But I took the Xanthi to be sort of like, this is what happens when you lose your inhibitions. This is what happens when your mind opens. And I was actually really sorry that they didn't go in a different direction where these pairings would have some kind of vulnerability, some kind of confessional, some kind of conversation that was vulnerable between the two people, instead of just this, running around chasing each other and trying to hide from somebody else. So that was disappointing to me, because it's based on the festival, and then they just kind of lost the whole point of the festival. Like, why have a festival? Why does it even need to be there then? And that's
Let's
all
see those thumbs.
I lost again. I don't understand what's happening. I've lost my mojo. Okay. Season 3, episodes 11 and 12. Past tense parts 1 and 2. A transporter mishap puts Cisco, Dax, and Bashir 300 years in the past at a crucial point in Earth's history. While on 21st century Earth, Cisco takes charge of a hostage situation in order to be sure history happens as it was recorded. I have an opinion on these episodes, but I'll let you guys share first.
Let's go to Joanne and then Will.
So, one of my favorites, although I do struggle regardless with the time travel things, like, I don't know, they make me feel dumb. Like, I don't get it. It's just too much math or something. But just, kind of poignant and relevant. Like, to me, this harkens back to a TOS alert, kind of classic Star Trek, dropping in the middle and commentary on, society. And I thought Brooks was brilliant in these episodes. Good time, Joe, a good time overall. Just a great episode. Do recommend.
This one's good. I found the on this rewatch of it, I found the idea that like Cisco ends up being this symbolic person kind of thing. I felt it a little why this too? Because it's like he's already the emissary, and I understand this kind of like he has become this savior character kind of throughout time inadvertently.
He's Jesus.
Yeah, a little bit like that. And while I appreciate it, it did. I don't know. It just didn't hit as hard as it normally does. Like it did feel like a good, like it's a solid episode. It's worth a watch. It's one of the best of the series. But like, I don't know. On this one, it just didn't seem to hit. Maybe it's hitting a little too close to home with all of the kind of the things that are kind of happening in it, which is really kind of upsetting that this was written as like the most dystopian future these writers could think of in the mid 90s. And now we're basically like on the cusp of that happening, like especially here in California with some of these rather ridiculous draconian laws that are trying to be passed through and like criminalization of things. It does. I don't know. I can't quite put I'll gather my thoughts and figure out what I'm trying to say in a minute, but like, I don't want to suck up too much airtime, but it just, I don't know. It just made me feel, I felt differently about this one. I just felt like the contrivance of Cisco being a Christ character again, in a different circumstance, I just felt didn't serve the character in a way where I felt like there was growth, but I also didn't feel like it hindered anything. I just felt like it kind of, I don't know. And I don't want to dress like someone who's in a Jules Verne novel by September. They all look like they were from a Jules Verne book. I don't know. The costumes were bad.
The clothes were not nice.
No, they don't know what to do with freaking Jadzia's hair. Every time they give her new hairstyle, it is like, throw that, if that's a wig, throw it in the trash. That thing is awful.
Front. I mean, yeah. So
like, does she have a bad head shape? Is there just too much hair? Like, then you slap a wig on her. But like, what is happening anyway? That's another thing I have a problem with. And everyone wears their uniforms too much. That's another thing too. But anyway, moving on.
I don't think that I didn't take the episode as a Cisco, or maybe I'm so used to all the captains or the pseudo captains or whatever being Christ figures that I automatically tune it out. I took this to be a Bashir episode because this episode kind of marks the end of his innocence. his idea of frontier medicine, his idea that this is all going to be exciting and fun and he's going to chase girls and the whole thing. I think that the entire experience was very traumatic for him in having to live a period of history that he simply does not understand how they got that way. Like, why would you get this way? And that makes sense from a medical perspective. Their jobs are preventative. So I think when it comes out, you know, how could they have let things get so bad? I think that marks the end of his innocence and the emergence of a more contemplative Bashir, and one that takes the idea that if everybody denies responsibility, then nothing ever changes. And from this point on, in fact, in the next episode, I think he refuses to back off of his own vows, his own creeds in favor of politics or Starfleet or whatever. It's, I'm a doctor first. This is what I do. I'm not going to do what you want me to do because my responsibility is to a patient. I don't think before this experience, he would necessarily be so absolute about that. And so for me, this episode is a growth episode for him that shows clearer as the season goes on.
Well, don't worry, it won't last.
Okay.
Spoilers. Just kidding. It's not bad. Trevor.
I've historically been very critical of two-parters, and this one doesn't make me change my criticism. But to me, I have a very inner light relationship with these episodes. I really enjoyed it the first time through because I love the concept, but it doesn't keep my attention for 2 episodes, and the actors, the guest cast, don't help at all. Avery's fantastic. Sadig is fantastic. I even enjoy, and of course Terry. I love sort of the comedic bit that is played off between Colum and Nana. Like, that's kind of fun as well. But every other guest supporting actor is dreadful for me. And it's Christopher reminds me of Guy from Meridian, like another boring dude that Jedzia is hooked up with, or not necessarily hooked up with, but saddled with. All of the quote unquote bad guys in the sanctuary district, and I use that term loosely, the people who are held hostage in the sanctuary district are kind of blah. Like, it's just, this episode, these 2 episodes were on today, on Pluto, and I'm immediately pulled out by like the way that the sets are constructed. Like, everything is so, it looks like the space station looks more realistic than their attempt to depict 21st century Earth. And that's just weird. Like, I don't know why that is. It just doesn't. Again, conceptually, it was great first time through. I love what they tried to do and what they accomplished in doing, and the story that they were trying, the message they were trying to deliver is delivered, and it's a message that needs to be delivered. But my enjoyment level is very low.
I have lived in both cities that Star Trek has now, balloons, depicted sanctuary districts in. And Picard did it better because it was just a bunch of tents. And it was basically in any particular area of LA you go to, you will see tents. And, when I'm driving around LA, when I see those areas, I cannot help but think, how in the world am I supposed to be mad at these people who we have all failed? Like, it is, like, there's so many people, politicians, and those who are frustrated with a tent on their street, want you to be mad at the people who are suffering the most. And I rewatched this episode on Pluto today as well. And the only thing that I thought was missing from it on this rewatch was a more direct criticism of capitalism. because it's kind of glaring that it's missing. And yes, this came out in the 90s, and the economic disparities were different back then, perhaps not as pronounced, or at least not as perceived as pronounced by the writers as like anybody writing today. The economic disparities between and the wage gap is so extreme. Like it would practically be criminal to write this episode today and not be directly condemning capitalism, because it is what causes these sanctuary districts. So that sort of took it out for me. But the overall message that we can do better, we just need to choose to do better, will always hit for me. Because I keep thinking about there was an SNL sketch back in the 2020 primary with Kate McKinnon as Elizabeth Warren, and she said at one point, she says, "Let me tell you something. Money doesn't exist." And it's like, it's so true, because money doesn't exist. We all pretend that it does. And then we pretend that we don't have enough of it when we want to provide housing or we want to provide education. But we seem to have plenty of money for wars in other parts of the world and on our own streets in a lot of ways with our police departments. So it's poignant. And for that depressing reason, it's a thumbs up for me. Let's see those thumbs.
It's like a. I'll go with an up, but it's again. It was written in 1995. We're in 2024. How could they have let things get so bad? Well, it's just too close to home.
Mm-hmm.
It was painful to watch.
Yeah, Picard season 2 did it really well too. I especially loved goodness, I forget her name, but the woman who played Guinan, the way she talked about how like they could solve all these problems, but just a few people are terrified of having just a little bit less.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of terrifying to watch, season 3, episode 13, life support. Sorry, I'm just testing out these segues.
Yeah.
Bashir is faced with an ethical dilemma when an accident seriously injures Vedic Bareil, a key player in the peace talks with the Cardassians. Thrusting Wynn into a actual negotiation position that clearly she is in over her head with.
Will, you insisted that this was a full discussion. Why don't you kick us off?
I don't remember that. He's throwing my ass under the transporter.
On Tuesday when we were hanging out and looking at these.
Oh, that's true. I did because I felt it was a. I think this is a good seed episode where it sets up Kai Wynn to be the fucking bitch, but like an incredible antagonist for the series, and especially for Kira. Like tests her own resolve against her religious leader. It's like, you know, someone who a devoted Catholic finding out the Pope is actually this raging cunt. Like it's, you know, I'm not saying he's not, but like, you know, someone dearly religious finding out their leader is like power hungry and a nightmare. And like again, a great episode for Kira. Like that last bit of her at the bed talking to him was really incredible. Vedic Bareil is super hot. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why I said we should talk about this one. I just think it's a great Kira episode.
Also, ethical dilemma, I think.
Yeah, it sets a Bashir too, and his kind of ethics. If you were bouncing off what Kira said about past tense, this really carries that forward. How he's becoming a very ethical physician, which I don't know if plays later, but I don't remember. But it does give a little more depth to his character as he's kind of maturing through the series. I mean, we say he's an ethical physician, but that definitely throws out the window in a few episodes. But I'll talk about that one in season 7. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know why I said we should talk about this one. I think it was just, I think I might have watched it before I came over. I don't remember, but
maybe
No, I think it's good. I think it's well written. I think the acting's great. I think the tension between Kira and Win is really the cornerstone of this episode. And Win kind of realizing she's not competent enough to carry to her eyes were bigger than her stomach in terms of her hunger for power. How she's not savvy enough and skilled enough to be able to wield the power she desperately wants. I think is interesting in the development for her character. She's deeply insecure. I think most people like that are power hungry like this, and it comes from a place of insecurity. I mean, look at the shit that Nicki Minaj has been doing. It's a place from deep-seated insecurity. But no, I think a lovely Kira episode. I feel bad for anyone that dates her because they always end up dying or leaving her for some reason. So, that happens a lot.
Walk with the prophets, my child.
Yeah. Oh God, that bitch. I that actress, Louise Fletcher, fucking again, so good. But I've never hated a character as much as I fucking hate Kai Wynn. I hate her. Anytime she comes on the screen, I'm like, God damn it, this is going to be fun. And now this bitch is here. So, I mean, kudos to them.
Such vulgarity, my child. Perhaps some time in
all right.
The chapel
you're going to have to drive yourself to Palm Springs, bitch.
I think it also draws attention to the overreaching of theology, because Burial he's doing this solely because of his belief in the prophets. He's doing it for Bajor. And all of these things are easily manipulatable by insecure, power-hungry people like Wynn. And it really does work out for her because she gets the credit, and she really was completely unprepared. And the people in the room know she was unprepared. So, it brings into question how theology and religion, if you will, can be used to manipulate people into sacrificing absolutely the very last thing that they possibly can sacrifice. They willingly hand it over. And in effect, it was good, but the consequence to that was that she rose to power, which is not good, but exactly what she wanted and needed to happen. So, but again,
and perhaps it's what the prophets wanted. Let's see those thumbs. All right, I've been convinced. We have another, just a programming note. We have another one that we all want to talk about. And then we have a quick run of 4 that we want to try and breeze through to sort of pick up some of the time before we get too late this evening.
Season 3, Episode 14, Heart of Stone. While pursuing a Maquis fugitive, Kira becomes trapped in an ever-growing crystal, and Odo admits the depths of his feelings for her.
Or do they?
Except it's not her. The only thing I liked about this episode was the twist, that it wasn't her. That was the only thing I liked about this episode personally. But
I like the Nog and Cisco scene.
Fair enough. The B plot was, yeah.
That broke my heart.
Yeah.
This is the one where he wants to get into Starfleet, right?
Yeah.
Great Nog episode. This was another one that I was rewatching a little bit today, and at first I was like, because I've said now multiple salons, and I've seen some nodding along when I've said it, that Nana Visitor is the best actress in the franchise, and I found myself while watching this being like, wow, this is actually kind of bad. I'm surprised. And then I remember she's not Kira Nerys. Nana Visitor, being a changeling, being Kira, she is so fucking good. She's like, it is hard to be bad at acting well, if that makes any sense. And the people who can do it, chef's kiss. People acting dumb, people acting bad, people acting a little out of sorts. So good. That whole episode, I was just like, oh God, Nana's a little off. And like, oh wait, she's actually on point. Love it.
It's the same with singing. You have to be really good to actually pretend to sing badly. So yeah.
Mhm.
Show me your thumbs.
Joanne.
Oh, I fucking hate this episode.
Well, let's move on to something that you might find more interesting. Season 3, episode 15, Destiny. Cisco is determined not to let an ancient Bajoran prophecy of doom interfere with the first Federation Cardassian scientific endeavor. I'm going to let out my thumb early and just say I love this because I love a prophecy coming true, but not the way you thought it was going to plotline, even though it's a trope and it happens a lot. I love this one.
Tracy Scroggins.
Yes, and we get Captain Lockley as a Cardassian. All right, we got an up by average, not by vote. Overwhelming vote, I should say. Season 3, episode 16, Prophet Motive. Quark mistrusts Zek's motives when the Grand Nagus decides to abolish greed by revising the Ferengi rules of acquisition.
If it's a Zek episode and doesn't have Moogie fixing it, ugh.
I don't enjoy Zach. I agree with you.
Justice for Moogie.
Oh, God.
Krista, I'm not going to spoil it. I'll just say, yes, justice for Moogie.
Oh, boy.
Season 3, episode 17. Visionary. A mild case of radiation poisoning. I mean, we've all had it, right?
Yeah.
A mild case of radiation poisoning gives O'Brien the ability to time shift into the immediate future, where shocking events are revealed.
I love this
The
episode.
shocking event is Romulans are awful and things blow up.
I don't think it's a big discussion episode, but I love it. It's super fun, timey-wimey, but not weird. Not too weird.
It's the only thing I dislike about it is that it's the, oh, I guess it's a good thing he got that radiation dose. I'm like, it's one of
There's
those
too
like,
many plot conventions.
yeah,
for
like the
sure
weird
for this
timey-wimey
one.
thing that shouldn't have happened and only happens once a season
Mhm.
just happened to happen before the station blew up. Like it's
Yeah.
not like he starts time traveling and realizing, put the milk down, it's bad. Like, no, the station explodes. Like it's not like an inconsequential time travel. But anyway, maybe he was destined to do it. Thoughts, thumbs? I like
I
that.
don't actually really remember it, so I'm going to go.
Oh my
there.
goodness, so many conflicting votes. 2 sideways, 2 up, and 1 down. Oh, it's a
Sideways?
Probably a sideways by average.
I don't know. I've had vodka. I can't think. Season 3, episode 18, Distant Voices. After Bashir is rendered unconscious when he angers an alien named Altavar.
Ugh.
Why the fuck do we need to know this alien's name? He awakens to find a nearly empty station, beset by technical problems. First of all, beset?
Boo.
Rewrite Remember Me and Remember
Ooh.
Me Again.
And make it boring and weird and worse.
Yes, rewrite Remember Me, but make it a boy and make it bad.
Right.
Vote.
Remember Me is already bad. Fight me.
Fired.
Throwdown time.
Oh.
and I'm on
Ladies,
business.
ladies.
I am on my fucking business there.
Save it for the We All Scream at Each Other episodes, which come later in the year. Oh my goodness. Episode 19, Through the Looking Glass. Cisco goes undercover in a parallel universe in hopes of persuading his dead counterpart's wife, a scientist, to join the Terran rebels. I mean, yeah, that's accurate, but like if they just said mirror universe and mirror self, it would have been a much less contrived description. Yeah, so Cisco goes over to try to convince Jennifer that she should be for the good guys in the bad place.
This is not the episode I thought it was when I put this as a, hey, let's discuss, but I'm still open to it. Fun episode. It's a thumbs up for me.
I was bored.
It's a silence for me.
Can I say
I
something
was, 'cause it
controversial
wasn't
yet brave?
different from the first one. There's the characters are the
Yeah.
same. They talk in baby voices. They're menacing. Okay.
I'm going to kill you. Yeah.
Will
can I say something?
be
Can I say
brave.
something? Can I say something? I
Mhm,
think that the actress who plays Jennifer Sisko, Felicia Bell, maybe.
mhm.
I think she's a terrible actress. This
Oh, thank God.
performance is
Oh, thank God.
wooden,
I thought I was
coffee table wooden, oak,
Well,
branished oak side table wooden. I'm like, how did this woman get cast? It is
Because
like
she
you
was
could have
Well,
a mop
she
and a
was a
wig,
corpse.
and it would have been better.
she was a
Oh my
corpse, and then
God.
she was an ethereal alien. She wasn't meant to be
Yeah.
Well, they brought
Avery
her back
Brooks'
at least.
actual wife.
Nobody
But, like,
mentioned
acting-
it in
just
our discussion in the first season, and I was
wooden.
like, "Holy crap, she's really bad!" Like,
Also, I will say she does set the stage though quite brilliantly for a recurring love interest for Cisco, who, no spoilers, is much more delightful and enjoyable to watch.
Yes,
And
yes, of
yeah.
course. But
yeah,
like,
although
this isn't the last
Joanne's
we see
shaking
of
her head because Joanne's mad that it's not her.
Facts. Facts.
this is not Commander Kelsey or Captain Kelsey or whatever her name is.
Captain Yates.
Yates.
So this
Cassidy
is
Yates.
Cassidy Yates. Yeah.
Cassidy Yates. Yeah, she
Yeah,
was
yeah.
already introduced, wasn't she?
Was she? I wasn't sure.
Yeah, she's introduced sort of in.
He mentions her, I think, or
Yeah, he
something.
mentions her.
Yeah.
and-
Okay.
yeah,
I love the actress that
he
plays
is
her.
more delightful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But-
Penny
Okay.
Johnson.
Yeah. Thumbs?
She was really good on the Orville.
She is
Yeah.
really good on the Orville.
I don't.
Up, 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 down. Okay, so it's an up. Improbable cause, and are we lumping these two, Stan? Improbable cause and
Yes.
the die is cast. Okay. When Garrick's shop mysteriously explodes, Odo and Cisco investigate to determine who is trying to kill the Cardassian exile. Garrick finds his loyalties torn when Enabran Tain, his former mentor, orders him to interrogate Odo. The Tal Shiar and Obsidian Order join forces to attack the Dominion. I
Dun,
have
dun, dun.
super positive thoughts about the payoff from Defiant. Though my only criticism, this is a two-parter that I actually really love, which is funny because it's not technically listed, like it's not a part one, part two. But the only criticism I have of this is that there isn't a single line of dialogue that explains that there's like a force field around the device. Because Garrick turns on this device that inhibits Odo from transforming or from reverting into his liquid state or changing shape, and doesn't explain why Odo can't just turn it off.
Right. Can't just go push them down.
Or break it,
So,
or throw it against
yeah.
a wall, or stomp on it. Like there's no, yeah.
I love this
Agreed, Benji.
episode because it sets up Odo as like the Columbo, like space Columbo. Like he just like he pieces it together in a way. It was like that's what's going on. Like that, like Benji, where he says you blew up your own shop, Garrick, is like. So I'm gonna start using that just out of context because it's so
Yes.
funny to me. But like, I think it sets up a really great dynamic, but it continues a great dynamic between Garrick and Odo. And I think it's just we know more, but also less about Garrick. Because like we get to know more later on, but like the more it feels like they've set up this kind of rule that the more we know about Garrick, the less it actually has to be. If that makes, I don't want to spoil
The
anything,
truth-
but it feels
the
like
truth of Garrick
we
is
know
in
something,
his
but not
lies.
all of it.
The truth of Garrick is in his lies.
Yeah.
What's not being said in his lies is actually the
Yeah.
truth of him.
Yeah.
Especially the
I
lies.
love the two of them together.
Yeah.
The mental calisthenics happening were just genius.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was very
I
good.
enjoyed the actor who plays Tain.
Yes.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Joanne, I stepped on something you were saying.
Oh no, I just said it's very Scooby-Doo Mysteries. Yeah, it was very
Yeah.
And they'd have gotten away with it too if it weren't for you kids.
I I don't know if we're talking about the second part, but I also like Bashir having a meal with O'Brien and trying to explain how the meal is supposed to work. And O'Brien is, I mean, that guy is just on business all the time. I'm
Yeah.
here to eat. This is what I do. Then I'm going to go fix shit. And then I'm going to go see my family. And this is what I do. But I also think it sort of highlighted something that we've sort of lost in the 21st century. And that is the dining as an arena for philosophical debate. I think we are losing something as a society by not engaging in those kinds of activities anymore. And for spies, you can't ask for more fertile ground than sitting at a dining table listening to people talk about stuff. So
The thing that I do love about that, though, is it shows different kinds of friendships. Like Miles and Julian, they're not have a meal friends. They're darts and hollow sweet friends.
right.
They'll have a meal with a group or over with the wife, but they're not that type of friend. Just like I've got my improv friends, I've got my Star Trek friends. Like it's not purposefully siloed, but different kinds of friendships. I have my high school bestie. He and I won't talk to each other for 6 months, and then it'll be like nothing's changed. Something that I love about this show is that they do highlight different kinds of friendships really well.
I will say I would have loved, just because meals were referenced, I would have loved more scenes, and I realized they didn't have her availability a lot, but more scenes, or any scenes, of Julian going to dinner at the O'Briens. Like
Mhm.
actually coming over for dinner, and Keiko, family dinner, Julian's invited. And at some point in season 5, Molly calls him Uncle Julian. Like there's like I would
Yes.
have liked to have seen some. Instead, it's just like she's always like, "Oh, Miles, you're just going off to play with your best friend," kind of a thing. And it's like, why
Yeah.
isn't he becoming part of the family? Like that would have been kind of cool. They do some fun family stuff with the O'Briens in later seasons. No spoilers, but that would have been like a cool thing to see that as part of their growing friendship. But anyway, that's just me picking bits. Shall we move on? Well, we didn't rate these yet, did we? Oh, we did. We were ups for ups all across the board. So we are moving on to season 3, episode 22, Explorers. Cisco builds a replica of an ancient Bajoran ship and then takes Jake on a journey to test an 800-year-old legend about Bajoran space travel. I personally love a Ben and Jake story.
I was gonna say this was
I don't care what happens.
initially a skip because this is the A plot. The B plot is some weird shit with Julian and a rivalry that like, oh, I'm sorry, you were second to a woman. How hard for you. I don't like Julian Bashir, as it turns out. I don't know if I've made that painfully obvious, but I do want to highlight this wonderful father-son relationship that we have with Ben and Jake. I've talked about this before, like seeing what a real father looks like in Ben Cisco, because my father is a piece of shit. I didn't realize as a child watching this, and now as an adult watching back, I'm like, oh yeah, what a wonderful father figure. I wish my dad paid more attention. This was a really sweet episode for the two of them, and they had a really lovely sci-fi adventure happening at the same time. It's really great.
And it was one that was really important to Avery as an actor. This is one of the ones he talked about. And probably one of his, like I said, one of his favorite episodes, and very significant for that very reason. And that, it's just a beautiful sort of interaction between father and son. And that was so immensely important for him to portray. And it resonated with, to this day, it still resonates with all of us.
I liked the paradox of building something from the past in order to accept your future, because it's while they're on this past thing that he starts to begin to think, okay, what is my future going to look like? What are the things that I want to include? what is it that I want Jake to know that he can do and can't do, and all of these kinds. So it was a very nurturing kind of episode, even inclusive of Gul Dukat at the end, proving that even as an enemy or a standard kind of, I don't know if we can trust this guy, you can still experience a moment of communion. You can still experience a moment and share a moment of celebration. So when the fireworks went off, I was like, oh, that just made the episode for me. Like, he's setting off fireworks and congratulations. And yes, we already knew that this ship had made it, and we just didn't want to let anybody know. Nevertheless, this thing that you did is a brilliant accomplishment. It's an important accomplishment. And I'm going to share this with you, and I'm going to celebrate it with you. And I thought that really was, again, in keeping with this idea that in the future, things may be different. In the future, things can be better if you want them to be better. You just have to stretch yourself. So I loved this episode. I thought this episode was growth all the way around.
It was also a really nice callback. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Joanne.
To the Ensign Row episode, and just kind of that line at the beginning, Picard, when they get at that Bajoran sort of refugee camp, and he's just like, in an age when their technology, should be clothing female. I read about the ancient Bajorans, when I was a little boy, like they should be this technologically advanced world power. They did great things. I thought this was a very nice sort of reminder of that they did indeed accomplish tremendous things, a very, very long time ago. And it was also just a very nice, again, a theme that resonates with, people who have been displaced and their histories repressed or, downplayed, to just have that moment of reclamation and affirmation saying, we are great, right? And we did great things and we've contributed. One of my favorite moments.
They were artists and explorers when humans were not yet walking erect or standing erect. And how prolific in 1995 for DS9 once again to recognize that Cardassians and humans that act like Cardassians would deny the truth about history. Fast forward. Thumbs for explorers?
Big thumbs up.
Awesome. Oh, and then we go to a Ferengi episode. Season 3, episode 23, Family Business. Quark is summoned to his home planet when his mother violates a Ferengi law prohibiting women from earning profits. On the arc of justice for Moogie, this is kind of an exception to my normal boo-hoo about Ferengi episodes. I do kind of enjoy this one. So
there are so many good Ferengi episodes, though.
The audacity, Rom on his mother's naked thighs with her cooch right there, did not pull a punch. The audacity of this episode is like, soil yourself laughing. Take your clothes off. Take your clothes off. Is she talking to me? Everything about it. And
no, she was talking to me.
It's a Rom episode. Rom is such an unusual Ferengi. And I love Rom. And I love him even more at a little bit of a later episode. But I started to really, really love Rom. And I liked that her disrobing was not down to custom. It was an act of love for her son. She did it. And in that, she had her own agency. And also walking into their little houses, I was like, oh, it's like a little hobbit house. It's like a little hobbit house. I just knew I was going to love the episode. Andrea Martin, no other fucking Moogie ever. No one else could play her.
Interesting. Interesting. I agree with everything until the end. I love this episode. I love Moogie. I do love Andrea Martin. I think one thing that I love about the nudity aspect of this episode is while it is misogynistic in Ferengi society, it's not sexual. And I do like a not all bodies naked are inherently sexual moments. I think that's something that gets missed in our society a lot. Not that I'm pushing for more nudity and nude beaches and whatnot, but I'm also not pushing for those things. Rom is not as dumb as he seems, particularly like he's dumb with it with regard to business and some interpersonal things, but when push comes to shove, he is a loving son, he is a loving brother, and he will be a loving he is a loving father, and he will be a loving whatever relationship he happens to have. Rom is a lover. Brunt is a cunt, and I love him. Jeffrey Combs moment is always going to be a great episode in Deep Space Nine. What else to say about this? It's just, she's a badass. I love it. Moogie forever.
Thumbs for Moogie and the episode in which she appeared.
Contrarian Joanne over there.
In general, I don't like the Ferengi.
No, that's fair. That's fair. If it wasn't for Moogie, like, who was it? It was either Will or you, Trevor. Somebody's like, Moogie makes the Ferengi better. Like the Ferengi become infinitely better because of her, even when she's not around. Like her character makes their society more interesting.
I'm going to give credit to Will for that because I don't think I said that, but I agree 100%. Episode 24, Shakar. Kira reluctantly returns to Bajor on a mission against Shakar, her leader during the resistance movement. I don't have a ton to say other than that I fucking love this episode. If for no other reason than the evolution that Kira has been on in terms of learning and growing, and not that you can outgrow having been a terrorist, but it's interesting to see her acknowledge that maybe it's not always necessary to go to that extreme. That it doesn't mean that it wasn't necessary when she did it the first time, but maybe she's learned that there are gradients to which we should respond. And Pharrell and Loop is a please, yes, and thank you. I love them in all ways, shapes, and sizes. But yeah, for the Kira of it all, this episode, and for her growth is all of my thumbs up for this one.
I could watch this episode every day. I love it. Kira's a badass, and Ghost Candle coming in as Shakar, and ending up the first minister of Bajor is just fucking awesome. And slapping down Kai Wynn, because you cannot have your religious leader be your political leader. We see that blending way too much in our own society, and putting a light up to that in this episode, the allegory of it all, it's just fantastic.
That's something else I massively appreciate about this episode, and you just brought it up, is Ghost Candle becoming Shakar, making it okay to lust after Duncan Rager again, because it wasn't okay when he was a Ghost Candle, but now it's totally fine.
Hey, don't disrespect Nana that way. He gave her many happy comings and goings.
Indeed.
I would say it was interesting to follow on the psoriasis Queen Elizabeth, who was like, "Why are you not letting my farmers move into your famine-riddled place?" And it sort of plays on that it doesn't necessarily work for them to have their problems solved. It only works if can be used in a capitalist ways. So it is a backhanded sort of, it's not as obvious as everybody would like, but it is a backhanded criticism to capitalism and crops being grown just to export instead of to feed your own. But again, psoriasis Queen Elizabeth was right.
Thumbs for Shakar. I'm so happy that everybody agrees on that one. Episode 25, Facets. Jadzia undergoes a Trill ritual and meets Dax's previous hosts, who communicate with her through Cisco, Odo, and others. Nog prepares for Starfleet Academy despite Quark's disapproval. This is another episode in which I feel pretty strongly that the A story and the B story have pretty much nothing to do with one another, and I don't care.
Yeah.
Normally, I like it when these two things support each other. In this one, like one of the beautiful things about DS9 and the expansiveness of the station is that there shouldn't be always supporting stories. Like I like the fact that two different, very dichotomous things are happening at once. I very much enjoy this one.
This episode is one of my favorites. I'm going to love a Dax episode. Jadzia is incredible. Terry Farrell is wonderful. I wish that they had given her more. We've talked about this where she sort of gets undercut in some ways because of this happened to this other character that we're not really going to see. This happened to Curzon. Curzon's the one that comes up the most. And so being able to see more of her hosts was lovely. It gave the other actors some fun stuff to do, including I will sing Nana's praises constantly. Her scene was really lovely. Chase Masterson's was. All of them were. Avery was a little creepy with it, but like, hey, it worked because he was embodying a murderer. So hey, let's go for it. And one thing that I loved about this is even though we heard a lot about Curzon in other episodes, here we actually get to see it. There was more of a showing us rather than telling us kind of vibe. It also gave us a really interesting what am I trying to say? What a really interesting aspect to the Trill. So we know that they have their memories, but it doesn't seem like unless those memories include the expression of certain feelings that you would remember it. So Jadzia does not remember that Curzon loved her. And it's not even because the memories are out of her for then and there. Like she would have known that that's why she was washed out of the initiate program. And so even though it's not explicitly said, I interpret it that Curzon had these feelings, expressed them to no one, and so that's how she had no idea. So it's an interesting layer to the symbionts, which it's my assumption it may or may not be true. But the last thing I'll say is this gave us something wonderful, and I really think one of very few knocks I will give Deep Space Nine is they had a huge missed opportunity with this new potential relationship, this friendship between Odo and Jadzia, because they had that lovely scene at the end where now Jadzia has these memories of what it was like to be able to shapeshift, and Odo had a new appreciation for what it was like to have this lust for life. And so I thought, wow, what a wonderful friendship that could have happened. Like maybe Jadzia is the one who could have been nudging certain things to happen that Krista hasn't seen yet. So I'll catch myself. Yeah, it was a bit of a missed opportunity from there, but this episode was wonderful, so it's a thumbs up for me.
I like the idea that perhaps the symbiont chooses to not share all of the private memories.
Ooh, I love that idea.
With the new host, the memories of Curzon are in Dax, but Dax chooses not to share them with Jadzia.
Not until the next host.
Mm-hmm. Thumbs. Sorry, Kristen.
I think it's interesting that we're kind of bouncing around this idea that Curzon, basically a man of influence, had the potential to change the trajectory of her life. Because he either couldn't communicate or he couldn't manage his own emotional situation. And the result of that is that she has spent from then till now kind of questioning whether she's worthy enough to do this. whether she has the requisite skills. There's always kind of a layer of insecurity there that would not be there had she not washed out. And the reason why she washed out is because he couldn't deal with it. So he goes on to fail up and she has to reapply. And the residual effect of that is she remembers washing out, but not reapplying. And to me, it sort of illustrated the way that sometimes you don't just, this was so neat and tidy an ending that it really bothered me that she did not say, I have spent years thinking I was not good enough. I didn't measure up, that you wouldn't approve. And you're telling me now that the reason is because you couldn't manage the possibility that I might not reciprocate your feelings. They don't have that conversation. Instead, she just says, well, I love you too. And everybody's happy families. That pissed me off because they got right to the edge and they could have done it and they pulled back and they didn't do it.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And it's like, hey man, don't go there and then not come back. Also, I wasn't even looking at the screen and they were doing that dialogue. And I was like, I've heard this fucking dialogue. Hello, Beverly alert. This is largely dialogue from Attached, where just substitute you were one of my students instead of you were married to my best friend. And all of it is kind of the same thing. At least with that ending was true to those characters and how they malfunction on an emotional level. In this, I could see Curzon not wanting to address it, but I don't see Jadzia not having the storms to say, hey, wait a minute, I'll forgive you for this, but after I tell you these things. I'm capable of forgiving you. I'm capable of getting past this and being happy families with everybody in my meat pocket. But I need you to know this is what it did. This was the result. And they didn't go there. And that pissed me off. Sorry, but
no, fair.
No, there's a lot of potential there for being angry with something that you then reincorporate into yourself. Sort that out.
Yeah. I largely like this episode because I like the Dax stuff and the kind of exploration of her and like what it's like to have these different lifetimes within yourself and everything. I draw umbrage with the complication that Odo and Curzon are going to stick together. I felt it wasn't a necessary aspect of the episode, and I think it makes Curzon seem like a complete bag of dicks. Like everyone, like no one ever talks about Curzon in a way where it's like this guy's a little manic and he's kind of a douche. But the time that we actually get interaction with him, he's kind of objectively repulsive. Like he is like this. He is very into himself. He pushes for his own agenda. He avoids Dax. Like Dax very clearly at the moment of where she's going to meet him, which the episode kind of builds towards, he kind of goes, oh, I'm in this body now. Great. And he's like ready to peace out. It's like, you already lived a whole lifetime as Dax. Why do you need to go live another one in another person's body? Like for a character that is talked about a lot, to then see him kind of personified was a little frustrating because it goes against a lot of what people talk about, which the episode could be, if that was the episode, then maybe these people we review are not necessarily good people. But the episode was not about Curzon, it was about Jadzia. So I think they could have done it where they had more of a conversation without that complication. I think it would have worked better for me. I do enjoy the Odo Jadzia relationship, which we would have explored more, because I think it's two people who kind of on some level get each other. And I didn't feel any type of resolve from Jadzia, because she should have been pissed that this guy scrubbed her from a program she was building her whole life because he had feelings for her. And it's like, yeah, this creepy old guy ruined your life. Like, I would have kicked his fucking ass. I would have been like, I was like, no, you're staying in Odo's body so I can whoop your fucking ass. And I would have gone over and grabbed a batleth and beat the shit out of him. Like, that would have been what I would have done. Like, it's a little also out of Jadzia's character, but like, I don't know. I found the complication in the resolution of to kind of ruin an episode that should have been more an exploration of a character.
And then again, Jadzia is relegated to a male counterpart, which is a little frustrating because I liked the episode up until that point. And then they kind of don't know what to do with her. So the writers relegate her to a male's whim, perspective. I don't quite know what that word is, but it was a little frustrating. Though everyone's performance is really marvelous, I just don't like the complication and what it does to Curzon's character and how it changes the episode from Jadzia to Curzon, in my opinion.
All great points. One could say this episode has many facets.
Speaking of
We
facets,
can agree that Leela.
Trevor, can we talk over here?
Mhm.
Yeah, the thing about puns is
Right.
sometimes they work, sometimes they don't.
Stanley, I hate
Okay.
to interrupt.
Yeah.
Stanley, I hate to. Can I meet you over here?
Yeah.
But if you're you should actually be more of an expert on puns if you're gonna talk about puns. So I just want to let you know that you shouldn't be speaking on something you know nothing about. So I just want to. That's all.
Trevor,
You had more to say? Mhm.
never mind.
It's not work.
Yeah.
So, okay. Okay. We should just do the last episode, do you think?
This bit is hilarious, and I don't care what anybody says.
Okay.
Episode. Oh, wait. Rate it. Show me your thumbs, damn it.
Nah.
Oh dear, I have to. Oh god, I have to do math. Okay, wait. I got it down, 2 ups and 2 sideways. It's a sideways. Okay. Whew. That stressed me out. Okay, episode 26. We've arrived at landing pad A. The adversary. The Dominion tricks Cisco into a confrontation with the Thenkethi, which is a fun word to say, that could lead to full-scale warfare. I don't like that they put warfare. It should just be full-scale war. Anyway, yeah, what do you think? We're everywhere. You're too late.
I think I don't like Defiant episodes. Like stuck on the ship ones. I'm just like,
for me. Well, don't stick me on a ship when it's a tiny ship.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. It's my claustrophobia. This is a thumbs up for me because it is a great episode, particularly for Odo. And I know because we talked about it on Tuesday. I know Will loves this episode. I'm just like, it exists. It is a technically good episode, and that is where I will stop.
I love this episode. I think this is actually the first episode that I saw other than the pilot, the emissary, because I think the network that I used to watch it, KSQ, shout out KSQ, when it hit syndication, I think they showed the pilot. Then this is where they picked up the syndication, I believe. I think that's how that worked. But this is the first episode I really remember seeing of DS9, like vividly as a child. In Salt Lake. Yeah. It's like it sticks in my mind as like my first firm memory of DS9, and I like the kind of like monsters on the ship thing, and I found the changelings to be kind of terrifying. And even watching this, I felt the tension of the episode really ratchet, and I thought it was really good. But like, and then the kind of choice Odo makes at the end. But I don't know. I love this episode, and I love the kind of paranoia that ensues in the next season, and whether people are changelings and how that kind of how that plays and then continues. So yeah, for some reason I love this episode. There's no reason for it. I'm just like, people try. It reminds me a little bit of Alien, like tangentially, like monster stuck on the ship. I don't think enough people died, but like monster on the ship, I always find them entertaining. But I think nostalgia really colored it for me. But I don't care. I'm not thinking objectively about this one. Thumbs up.
I liked it too. I just didn't like that little Bolian guy.
Oh yeah, no, he's annoying. But like, I don't care.
No. What were we saying, Joanne?
I said I love it just because Cisco gets to be captain. Like, he gets his rank and
sure does.
Moment, right? So
I always hated it took him almost 4 seasons to get him to captain, but
yeah, that was
and they did the same thing to Burnham, but we won't go there.
We won't go there, but just like I felt the joy I felt when Burnham took the seat is the same joy I had when he got his bib, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was
and his son got to put it on.
Yeah,
that's
it was
good.
A moment.
Show me your thumbs. Oh, sorry, Krista.
whole episode, I was like, oh, this is where they got season 3 from Picard. I'm with Benjamin on this. Because the whole thing. But that said, it as soon as the episode opened, I was like, oh, there's going to be at least 1 or 2 changelings on this ship. And then my whole focus was which one's the changeling. Like I stopped listening to dialogue as though they were going, like I was going to recognize some kind of shimmy shine or something on the television. I will say I pegged the first one and, and I thought Bashir was acting strange, but I didn't get the second one. But again, I was like, y'all are too limited in where you're looking. They could be the filter in your air conditioner. They don't necessarily have to be walking around. And I agree that Bolian was a dick. Thumbs up.
Thumbs for me. I love this episode. Thumbs up.
That's a season.
Y'all, we've done it. We got through a very strong season of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Let's hear that tally.
We have. Y'all used to give me a drum roll, and now you don't. 18 thumbs up. Ups. 5 sideways, and 3 down.
I think that's the strongest season we've had thus far of any show we've done.
Pretty strong fucking season.
They've really cracked the code on how to do like serialized light and episodic. They really cracked the code on how to, because they drop little nuggets, seeds, like Will says, little seeds.
Yeah. But they're quick to harvest, which I think is good. Like they'll drop something, they'll mention something, and it kind of comes to fruition later in the season. So you don't have to have a long memory, but you do kind of, it's nice to, as a rewatch going, oh, they mentioned this, like what we're doing.
Like,
it's fun to kind of pull those together.
Are very organized. I imagine there were many flow charts.
That's great.
With lines.
Many
Many a flow chart.
For the rest of the score, guys, there was 1 TOS alert. There were 2 Bev alerts. No canon alerts, no problematic gay alerts, and I think it's not a coincidence that Matt wasn't here.
Quick, somebody say something.
Someone say something inappropriate. Julian's hot. That's not inappropriate. Bonus points, 700 to Krista for repeatedly using the term plunked. And 10,000 points to Joel for remembering when I almost forgot. Attention, Bajoran workers.
Attention, Bajoran workers.
Bajoran workers.
Well, y'all, we did it. Kendi, what'd you think? She loves it.
I can tell.
Kendi loves it. She does not love being up here, though. Do you want to get down? She was clamoring for attention earlier. All right, y'all, we did it, and we did it almost within the time. So exciting.
So, spoiler alert, do they, in DS9, do they set up some kind of exchange between the changelings and the Borg? Or is that purely a Picard fabrication? Okay.
There's no connection between the two. I think there is a reference in one or the other show about the changelings or the Dominion, but in the Borg, I think there's a reference somewhere. It might be crossing the streams here, but I think there is something, but not anything concrete. I mean, I don't think the Borg could assimilate a changeling, but
once Voyager was on the air, it was there in the Delta Quadrant. They'll take the Borg. You guys stick with the changelings, and the only Borg references are to Sisko's past at 359.
So season 4, is that when Voyager started? Because I noticed that season 4 has 1 less episode than the
I think
2 seasons.
I think it starts in the 3rd season.
5 episodes.
I think it starts in the 3rd season. I think it starts in January of 95.
They changed the comm badge. I know because I judge everything based on what uniform and comm badge they're wearing. So they went from the circle one to the rectangle. So I think that's when it switched when Voyager started, because they're wearing the same uniform, but their comm badges are the same.
Nerd.
No, is it what?
Yeah, I said nerd.
Nerd.
Whatever. Whatever. You're here too. You're here too, Joanne. Don't nerd me.
That's how
No
she
nerd on
knows.
nerd crime.
That's how she knows that you're a nerd. She speaks nerd. She's fluent.
All right, nerds. That's season 3. Next week, we'll be back talking about season 4. Until then, everybody thrive. Peldor joy.
Eldor Joy.
And have a lovely evening. Live long and prosper.
Bye.